Hello, everyone. We're glad you're here. Welcome to our podcast, Foundations, Expert Concrete Training and Adventures, hosted by concretepreneur and industry-recognized expert David Stephenson, and joined by new guests every episode. David has been in the concrete industry for over 20 years as a contractor, operator, owner, product developer, and consultant, and has started, grown, and sold contracting companies as well as chemical manufacturing and equipment companies, and is currently the principal consultant with PCC Consulting. With clients ranging from the NFL to Amazon to the Department of Defense, the largest and most recognized brands have consulted with David for their programs and project issues. Foundations is a free podcast for general as well as specialized contractors, owners, designers and architects, developers, and other concrete enthusiasts who may enjoy and benefit from being a part of conversations David has with industry leaders and some of the incredible people he's worked with over his career. We discuss where the industry has been, where it's going, and adventures to be had along the way. Now, here's your host, David Stephenson, interrupted with the occasional question by me, Rachel Fisher.
Okay, so how you doing, man?
Great. How are you?
Good. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
We've got a good guest today, Jon Jones Jr., known for a long time, works with Budget Concrete out of Philadelphia. And Jon, you want to introduce yourself a little bit more than that?
Yep. Hey, everybody. I'm Jon Jones Jr. Known David. We were just talking. I guess you've known my dad for 20 years. I guess I've known you for about 12 to 15 years. We're based out of right outside of Philadelphia. We're a polishing contractor. I got started in this industry when I was 13 or 14 years old. I was kind of born into it. Didn't really have a choice. And it's taken me a long way. I mean, I've met a lot of great people in this industry. David being one of them, obviously. But yeah, I'll never forget. I was young, man. I was like 13 or 14. I was on a job I probably shouldn't have been on. It was a APHIS job. I remember it. And I was still in high school working the summers. And the foremen are there, and I'm just a kid. Didn't know really much about polished concrete. And David would still do his site visits to the site, and the foreman would always say, "We got to get going. David's coming." And at that age, I'm like, okay, just thinking it was the GC or a rep or something. They're like, "No, David's coming." I'm like, all right, who's this David Stephenson guy? And that was the first time I met David. Was on an APHIS project. Like I said, I was about 14 years old, and when he walked on site, and it was like the Red Sea. Everything kind of parted. GC. I was like, that must be David. So that was my first experience in remembering David. And yeah, me and David had a really good relationship. He was, like I said, he was friends with my father for a long time. But then we also formed our own little relationship. As I grew in the company, I would call David. I don't know. We were talking once or twice a week. Hey, Dave, because Dave was a contractor. He was a manufacturer. He did it all. So he said, hey, anytime you need something, I don't care what time of day it is, what time of night it is, you call me and I'll help you out. And he really did. And there's not many people in the industry with his knowledge and would be so, I guess, open to helping other people succeed. So that's kind of what I remember about my first meeting with David.
Well, I appreciate that. I don't know about the Red Sea, but I do. It is kind of funny to me. I'll show up unannounced and watch crews work, and they do things differently than when I'm announced and everybody knows that I'm coming and stuff, because I wear the owner's representative hat, and like in your case, I know all the upper management company, known you for a long time. A lot of those foremen I've trained over the years at different times. So when they know I'm coming, I think it is a little funny. Well,
it still happens today, and it's funny that like some of the guys that I mentioned aren't here anymore. But as soon as we're on a project, that you're involved with, everybody's like, I don't know, we just tend to, we learn from the past, and we tend to, we have the A team there, and everybody's all hands on deck, and it's a lot of fun. Those projects are fun. So
Say that one more time for customers. What happens when I'm involved in a project?
it's fun. Well, you have to learn. You have to learn the ropes. In the beginning, it wasn't always fun. Samples. And now I got guys calling me, and they're like, "Hey, David's coming to my project tomorrow. I need to get this sample done this way and this way." I'm like, "Yep, you better follow the spec, and you better follow it exactly how he has it in there, or you're going to be redoing it."
That's
And
it.
we seem to not have those problems anymore. But like I said, that's 20 or 30 years of experience.
Yeah, as long as you read the specifications and then follow what's in your contract to do, then we're great. Uh, if you don't read the specs and you don't follow the contract, then you not as much fun for anybody, me included.
I remember a lot of times in the samples. I mean, this is in Virginia. I think we were doing Wegmans or something, and you would fly in, and we were all ready to do the sample, and of course we forgot something. So before you got there, I knew we were either in for an 8 or 10 hour night with this sample redoing it, or me and you were looking at the sample for 15 minutes and going to get something to eat. And we had a lot that went both ways. So
Yeah. So as a contractor, my role as a consultant, I try to my first level of responsibility is the customer that's hired me to help manage their project. My second level of responsibility is trying to teach the group, help them understand. Actually, we were talking about it yesterday. I did some calculations and I looked in my hard drive. John, this is for you. If you had to guess how many projects I think I've been involved in my career, what would your guess be?
with just yourself or budget maintenance?
No, just myself with all contractors, but myself.
I mean, let me do a little quick math here. I mean, I could be totally wrong, but you got to be upwards of 750, 1,000.
2,200.
That's a lot.
2,200 projects that I've either written the specifications for, been on site for quality control, been on site to handle problems or fix them. And so when you see that many projects, you pick up stuff, right? So I try to take knowledge from these 20 projects over here, share it, figure out how to fill it down, something that's easy to share, and then share it with your crew guys on site out there on the project. So
Yeah,
that
number. Sorry, that number seems. I was thinking just from my time knowing you. So I keep forgetting that you know what I mean. You knew my dad for years prior, so all those projects prior. So yeah, that number makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I've been consulting now for 13 years, almost 13 years as a consultant, and usually I'm on where 3 projects a week, every week, sometimes more, and then prior to being a consultant, I had American Concrete with our contracting company that I started, whatever, like 25 years ago or something. And Ameripolish and Patriot Sprayer Systems started both of those. And so, between, as you said earlier, manufacturer and consultant, a lot of projects there and a lot of stuff that you see from so many projects.
And a lot of knowledge, like I said, both from the contractor standpoint as well as the consulting. Because I remember when I was really into operations and kind of just starting out, and I'm an organized kind of OCD guy, and I'm like, how this was handed to me, this shop and this organization is not the way I want it. And I remember specifically you coming out a bunch of times, and you said, gave me a lot of great tips and pointers on how to organize the warehouse and what makes sense for the industry that we still use today. I remember the squares for the foremen. We have these little squares we still use today, and now they're big squares. But so whenever they order something the day prior, it goes right in their square. So they get there in the morning, grab their stuff, and they're in and out. And that was something that you implemented that we still use this day.
So what John's talking about for listeners is talking about putting picked out or painted out squares on the floor in your warehouse in your shop. You can put all the material and equipment and everything for one crew in one block area, so that somebody's not standing there dictating. There's another contractor that I'm a good friend, actually friends with your dad too, who every morning he sits on his forklift with a cigar, yep, everybody put into their trailer trucks for the day, and he's there every morning and does the thing, tells everybody what to take. Invariably, he does great, but 1 out of 10 or 1 out of project missed.
Yeah.
And so then that crew doesn't have everything they need today. So by marking out squares in your shop for each crew, you can consolidate, kind of double check yourself to make sure that they have everything they need. So that was one thing I remember. Another thing that we put in the sheets, the foreman sheets, where it have square footage, process, a copy of the specifications, anything unique or special, the customer contacts, GC contacts, all of that. So email that to the foreman every. We worked on that sheet. You guys had, if I remember, something before, but we kind of changed it or updated it based on some sheets that I'd seen with other contractors that had cool things, cool components to them that were very helpful. I remember that. I remember that. Talked a lot back then when you were in ops, trying to get your hands on everything. You didn't want anybody to know that you were new. You were very concerned about everybody not knowing that you needed to know.
Well, it's funny to see it come full circle too. I mean, I'm a stressed out, like 23, 24-year-old, running 50 guys and working from 5 o'clock in the morning till 6, 7 o'clock, whatever I had to do. But now I'm sitting here talking to you on a podcast, and my everything's kind of, I want to say running smoothly because we have problems every day. But I have an operations manager now, and I kind of taught him everything that I learned, whether it was from you or whoever. And we have a really good thing going on right now, and it's
So
nice.
I'm sorry. What's your role in budget today?
I'm still overseeing operations, so they report to me, but I'm more project managing now and kind of business development. But I like to be out on jobs with the guys, see the customer, see the superintendent, because when there's a problem on the next job or anything like that, they put a name to the face and they call me first, and I just want to be the first line of defense, like I had told you a little bit about that before. My dad's stepping away a little bit. Obviously, but for everybody out there, he was. I didn't think he was ever going to slow down a little bit, and he hasn't slowed down much. But last February, he was an innocent bystander in a shooting, and he was shot in the eye, lost his vision. So at that time, the transformation of me stepping up a little bit was already happening, but it kind of intensified over that incident. He's okay now, and he's back, but he's definitely slowed down a little bit, which gave me some room to grow.
Do you think you're going to transition to an even bigger role in the future? As you're doing ops stuff today?
That's the plan. I mean, my dad's still involved in ops. Like he still knows what's going on. And I think we're not really. I mean, we like deals and stuff and closing deals and sales, but that's more of our general manager Billy. But we're kind of operations guy. We want to know every employee, who's going where, and that's just kind of the nature of the beast. And I don't think that'll ever change for myself or him, because once you get too far removed, or you're like, I got a guy that can do that, and you're not paying attention to it, that's not good.
So you've been involved, basically, as we talked about, you've been involved in the industry at the very beginning. What, you have a different perspective than I do. What do you see coming? What are you focused on for the future? What are you focusing on for the future of budget? What do you see for the future of the industry? Those are two different questions. Let's start.
For budget, I would say we're still every day trying to streamline things. You know what I mean? We're trying to get good quality people, and we kind of have a niche in the Northeast. Could we travel across the country? Yes, but like I said, we have a little niche. We're union and non. So I'm a big believer, if it's not broke, don't fix it. So on that side of things, I don't think I'm trying to recreate the wheel too much. In the industry, like I said, we're always looking for new equipment, new relationships. I mean, we hadn't been out to the World of Concrete for 4 or 5 years, and I don't know that you need to go every year because a lot of these manufacturers are already telling you what's coming out new before. But I'll tell you what, this year when I did go out, I met a lot of great people. We had a great time. There was a lot of important people out there, and a lot of new things to see. It's interesting to see. I don't know, 5, 10 years ago, all these smaller companies, they're all being bought out now, and so you have to play that game with the manufacturers. There's definitely a limited number of vendors and suppliers compared to years past. So you just have to find out who you can partner with and who's a good partner, and yeah, kind of stuff like that.
I think when the industry hit 40% of the hard surface floor is polished concrete, you saw a lot of outside investment come in, and with that rush of cash meant a lot of roll-ups, companies buying other companies and buying them for customer share, for customer and market share. And I see a lot of that happen. I see a lot of product development, both that's introduced, but a lot more that's coming over the next couple of years because of these huge infusions of cash.
Yeah.
Lots of R&D work has been able to be in the past, happened at a slower rate. So I agree with you that that's a component.
It's definitely interesting to see where the industry was. I mean, for you, you've been in it a lot longer, but to see where it was and where it is today is pretty neat. And touching on what we talked about before, I'm kind of lucky in the sense that, like, when I go to World of Concrete or when I'm in some of these meetings, my knowledge that I have, people are like, "How old are you?" And I'm like, "I'm 34." And they're like, "How do you know about all that?" And I'm like, "This is what I've been doing all my life. I didn't graduate college. I've been in it since polished concrete. Shortly after polished concrete evolved, it wasn't too much longer that's all I knew. So I am thankful for that. When I look at somebody my age that's just starting out, they got a lot to learn."
So do you think growing up the way that you did with your dad being his industry and his friends with a lot of us that have been around, that helped you, or do you think it hurts you? What's your perspective on that? Like Hank Williams Jr. a little bit in the effect that his dad very well known, and basically everybody that was anybody music can come hang out with his dad. So and you're kind of in the same boat with your dad, John, and just how long he's been in the industry and known everybody in region of the country and whatnot.
No, it was good and bad. I mean, I definitely had big shoes to fill, still do.
Short, man. He's little.
Well, he's short, but but you know what I mean. But no, he was well known, respected. So I couldn't be like a schlep. I had to work just as hard or harder to earn that respect. But I'm very fortunate that my dad put me in the position. Now I did work for it, and I love the work, but yeah, I don't think I would change anything. Like I said, the people that I got to meet across the country that I still talk to today, it made me meet a lot of older people. When I say older, I don't mean any offense by that, but like I'm friends with people that are 20, 30 years older than me, but I have a lot of respect for them. I kind of mesh with them just because of the whole industry and meeting them, and got to meet people from all across the country, all over the world. So that I still talk to today. So no, I'm thankful for everything my dad taught me. and still teaches me today.
What is your thoughts? What are your thoughts on technology in our industry? Kind of what do you see coming?
That's a good question. As technology evolves and as I get older, my dad or my parents or anybody that was older used to be like, technology sucks. And now I'm getting to the point where I'm like, technology sucks. It's like a whole other wave. And then these kids are all on their phones. And so, as somebody that doesn't take technology as serious as I probably should, I mean, if it's easier on the guys and there's something out there that's going to be created for the guys, we're all for it. If it makes their job easier. But that's a good question. I'm interested to see machinery wise and just anything that's coming down the pipeline. I haven't done too much research on it.
I think, well, first I'll tell you a funny story that happened a few weeks ago. I go out to a job and the customer had spent about 170 grand to do a polishable overlay at the whole front of this big store. And they've got these spots where all the concrete, big rock underneath is showing the overlay. And it's a half an inch pour. We know it's a half an inch pour. They raked it. You know, the product uses versus the square footage. They came down. So you know they put a half an inch down. But you random spots of going through. So we go through and start watching the video of the guys polishing. They're grinding. The dude running the grinder is watching videos on his phone, and periodically he would just stop, and the machine would just sit, and he'd watch like a 3 or 4 minute video on his phone without moving more than 6 inches. And so he was all the way through the overlay and into the concrete below in these random spots. So that didn't go too well for the contractor. Unfortunately, had to redo a whole bunch of the area. Got to go quite a bit bigger than just that spot to fix it. But yeah, it feels like the worker, the guys, it's harder for them to focus as much with more addicted to technology.
That's a good point. I mean, I think COVID changed our world, obviously, in so many different ways, and definitely changed the industry and the workforce. So when you said technology, I was thinking more about equipment, but that's a good point. Just something as simple as that.
Well, that's one thing. The other thing that I was going to mention or talk about is, I think that probably the next big wave will not be as good for crew guys. Next big wave of technology in our industry, GPS unit. So, I know a few companies that are using some GPS mapping to like the automated lawnmowers that mow a big, hotels, big estates and stuff, where you plot the lawn and the lawnmower goes out and does the thing. There's no people. It's using GPS points to map and create a layout of the lawn and then mowing to the layout. And I think that will probably be something that will happen pretty quickly. Road construction crews are already doing that as well. And so if you can move and map out a road, then we can map out a project pretty easily, especially if we have blueprints and hard points. And so I think that in the near future, we'll get to a point where one guy can run 4 or 5 machines instead of 10 or 12 guys run the same number of machines. I think you'll find 1 or 2 guys, maybe 3 guys, 6 machines.
Interesting.
Yeah, where the machines go out, do their thing, back to a specific area for changing out tools, and you just need guys there for troubleshooting and somebody running the computer program that does the layout and everything's taken care of. I think that's probably the point here. I think that'll be one component we'll see introduced, which I think, labor, the biggest expense we have in the industry is labor. So it'll be interesting to see how that works, but also, there's so much craftsmanship that goes into our work too. So I'll be interested to see that dichotomy of equipment running on one side and quality control specific decision making on the other. Which one went out, but I see that technology coming. So, well, I was just interested in your take on that. Being a guy, and obviously the next generation in the industry. What if you could go back to that 24-year-old dude coming into ops? What would you tell yourself today?
Oh boy. Man, I was just really stressed, and I just took everything to heart, and I wanted everything to be perfect. And I'm wearing a bracelet right now. I've been through some things lately, and it says one day at a time. And I think that's something that you always used to say. Just say, you know what, it's going to be there tomorrow. And I just wanted everything to be so perfect. And I feel like I took years off my life trying to just worry and worry and worry. So I would just probably just work at just as hard, but I would probably let things roll and breathe a little bit and not be so uptight. But that's a funny question. Oftentimes I think about other things in my life, and I'm like, you know what? I don't think I would change anything, because that doesn't make you who you are. We're all who we are because of what happened to us or what we've been through. So to change it, I don't know if that would be any fun.
Well, I tell people this all the time, definitely learn from the mistakes, right? Nobody learns to walk because they want to walk. They learn to walk because they get tired of falling. Right? Hit your head a few times. That's all it takes for you to try to say, oh, I don't think I want to do that anymore. Let me figure out how to not do that anymore. You don't just stand up and walk. So I think you do learn from the situations that occur and from the mistakes you make a whole lot more. Unfortunately, more than from other people's mistakes. If you could learn as much from everybody else's mistakes, we'd have a lot of perfectionists, or people that have achieved perfection in our world.
Yeah, that's a great point.
So if you were, let's pretend like you're sitting down over a meal with a new contractor from Boise, Idaho, and he's just gotten into the polished concrete industry. Definitely not a competitor. Good guy, hardworking guy. What would be one or two pieces of advice that you would give them for a contractor coming in?
Good luck. No. Run. No. I would say you got to be patient. Stuff's going to happen every day, all day, and you definitely need patience. I mean, you can have everything mapped out for a job startup, have all the right crew, and you can show up and the guys hook up to the wrong power, and before you know it, you're fried a vacuum or a grinder. So having patience is something that can go a long way. And you just have to kind of learn, like, when something goes bad, all right, it happened. What's the fix now? How are we going to move forward? So, and that's kind of anything in life. Second thing is, I would say, you need some perseverance. It's not for everybody. So, you're going to have some hard days, but if it's something you're passionate about, which I'm passionate about, you don't get caught up in those bad days. You just keep moving one foot in front of the other and just keep moving forward. Labor is obviously tough. You're always going to be dealing with labor. That's just always going to be there. So people complain about it or this or that, but you got to think outside the box. Just because we're in polished concrete, there's so many life lessons that you can take from polished concrete, or any industry is what I mean by it. But yeah, keep putting one foot in front of the other, and if you want it bad enough and you want to succeed, you will. And as we were talking before, you definitely learn from your mistakes, and hopefully you'll learn from them, because it's a path to success. The more you F up, probably the more successful you can be.
What would you tell them regarding pricing?
Don't go too low. Don't go too high. Don't go too low.
Which is better?
I think honestly, we don't like to be the low guy. But if you stand by something and you think you're worth this price, then that's the price that you go with. But I always think middle of the road in most cases is, as me as a consumer, if I'm buying something, unless I'm gonna really, really want something, I shop around. But I would say middle of the road is always good. I don't think we're always the lowest guy. But
So
you have, with that, you have to perform.
I think the industry goes through interesting waves, at least, from my experience. You see times when the prices are very high, and then you see this kind of weird spiral race to the bottom where prices drop to the point where no one makes any money. And, that actually costs business, and the prices rebound and go back to where you're making pretty good margin. And then I start seeing sliding. So it kind of goes in waves. I think if I was talking to a guy, I would say, don't pay attention to everybody else's price.
Right.
Price that makes money. How much money do you need to make?
Right.
And one of the things that I see from my perspective today that a lot of guys miss is they don't account for the duration of projects. Bid it to the time you're actually doing it. So on a high school, that year from the time you bid the job, go job with crew. And with inflation, I don't think anybody the labor cost increase and the cost of goods increase. So if you budget to say 40% gross margin to try to end up with 20 net margin, and then you sit on with 20% inflation, now you're making gross and 10 to 15% net, and that's not enough to cover the overhead.
Yeah.
Profit. So if I was going back in time, I would say set the amount of money you want to make, whatever your percentage is, and look at inflation and plan for your project in 6 months to a year in the future, and bid it based on the inflation there. You're going to BC calls you and says price guy on the board. You say, well, you're constructing March. When are you planning to do concrete? Oh, not until December. Well, I'm planning for December's wages and December's material pricing and trying to figure that in.
Yeah.
Okay, low guy, he may be low today, but before you can do your job. And I find that if you know that going in and accurately, share that narrative or that with your GC and your owner, you'll find that you'll end up winning a lot of jobs, even rate than everybody else, because you're better prepared and better able to weather the project storm. What are your thoughts?
Absolutely.
When you're looking at labor, you say the labor is the hardest thing. You mean labor is hard to find? Labor is hard to train? What do you mean when you say labor is the hardest?
It's not so, like, we have a lot of quality foremen that have been with us for 5, 10, 15 years. It's just, I think COVID changed the labor force a little bit. Even without that, it's always those third and fourth type of guys. Like, if you're paying somebody $20 an hour, are they really worth 15? Probably, but where labor is right now, nobody in our area anyway, nobody's walking in the door for anything less than $20, $22 an hour, which is crazy. Maybe we're just not used to it. But no, we have a pretty strategic plan as far as labor. I'm not going to share that too much, but we do all the normal stuff, but we have a couple things in place just from learning over the years, how to kind of, and it's not stealing guys. We're not really big into that. But it's just a different resource that we've been using that we've been successful with. So like I said before, you got to think outside the box a little bit.
So one of the things that I'm working on that kind of is in, this podcast is in conjunction with expertcrew.com, our online training site. I'm working on like a certification module for beginner crew guys, intermediate crew guys, and advanced crew guys. I go through and I take all my experience, teach, say, that are 15 to 30 minutes a piece. And when they go through those, say 10 classes per beginner, a certificate saying that they know a lot more than what you would get for a guy street. And the idea is to help contractors like you to accelerate the training for crew guys, but also to help the crew guys justify that dollar figure they really want.
Yeah, it's a great point.
As an ops guy, if you had two guys in front of you, as a guy off the street that was working at Burger King yesterday, doesn't know anything about concrete, and he wants $20 an hour. Guy is been through a training program, comes in with a certificate that says, hey, I went through, classes, and I can understand tooling, and I understand equipment, and I understand stuff, and maybe it's not perfect, but he's got a lot of knowledge, and he's 25 an hour. Which one is higher?
The one that has the knowledge.
That's my thought, is that it's worth the extra money to not have to train that guy on your. If you spend, as a contractor, you'll probably spend 5 to 7 times the amount of money that you would pay him extra in fixing stuff, slowing down on jobs, and train that guy to get him to that point. So it'd be more lucrative for you to have somebody already trained, even if it's money. I thought that was my thought when I was trying to put that together. So,
absolutely.
Well, is there any questions you have for me? If you're on the clock and on the camera, and you have an open invitation, are there any interesting or unusual questions for me?
Yeah, I mean, I love this industry, but I don't want to say I'm getting tired of it. I don't know if I'll be in it forever. I'm not sure, but you've been in it a long time. So what is it that keeps you going every day? That says, man, I want to get out there and keep doing this polished concrete thing. Like how do you, not just for my sake, but I don't know, we all go through ruts where like, do I really want to keep doing this? Or I want to make, like, what makes you, is it the people? What is it?
I love, that's a great question. I like training. I like solving problems, and I like get satisfaction teaching guys about something that helps them be successful in their life. I feel like I have a lot of knowledge in the industry that I can share, so I get a satisfaction out of that.
That's great.
So, something that I do that maybe others do or maybe others don't is I'm trying things. I'm always experimenting with things. I'm sitting here next to my desk, and right here I have, I don't know if you can see this.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, so this is a sample of no melt product that is good polished concrete that I've been working on. So I just got the sample and I'm doing testing on it, and that's a product that I'm bringing to the market. I'm also trying to figure out what we're missing in the industry, and then figure out the knowledge, contact, or the ability to create a plug to fill in that hole. So I enjoy that. Plus, I like just seeing projects come together. I really love, and I think this is the same a lot of construction trades. I would drive the street and say, yeah, I was involved in that project, or I'm watching football TV. I helped build that stadium.
Yeah.
Or I really find that cool. And so, I would say those are the things. Constantly watching the technology, training and helping, supporting young guys in the industry and helping. Honestly, I enjoy helping customers. There's nothing that I hate worse than watching say a retailer into polished concrete, no knowledge about it, think it's going to, it turns out more difficult, mess up maintenance. 2 years later, they've gone away from polished concrete, not because of the fault of the product, but because they didn't have the knowledge that they needed to take advantage of it to make it successful.
Right.
Enjoy that part too.
Right.
Those are my thoughts. That was a great question.
When am I coming to Texas?
Hey, you can come next week. I'm barbecuing. I'm doing briskets this weekend if you want to come down.
I can't make it this weekend.
I got the shooting back up and open, and I got a big barbecue going on this weekekend.
All right, I'm jealous.
Anytime.
I'm jealous.
I'll probably be up there before down here.
Yeah.
I've got guys that I got to go look at. So, well,
I don't have any more questions, but I just want to say thank you for thinking of me, and thank you for asking me to join your podcast. It means a lot, and I know my dad really values your relationship, you and him, and I value our relationship in a different way. And we're going to keep doing good things and hopefully more things together. But it's been a fun ride, and the ride's not over.
Well, you have a podcast too, don't you?
Yep. Started a podcast about 2 months ago.
Second?
Yeah. Started a podcast about men's mental health with two buddies about 2 months ago. I went through, ended up going to rehab after struggling a while with some mental health and addiction issues. Went to rehab, did that whole thing, and prior to going into rehab, I knew I was struggling. I was struggling for years. I mean, 15, 20 years of trauma and stuff. And prior to going into rehab, I was like, I want to start a podcast. Well, after coming out, we did start it. It's called Ego at the Door podcast. It's focused on men's mental health. Ego at the Door, yep, on Spotify and Apple Podcast. We have 11 episodes now. They're about 40 minutes. Each week we have a guest come on. Actually, Vasco from our industry came on and he told his story. But there's a lot you can get out of it. It's mental health is obviously an issue that gets put to the side, and more so men's mental health. So we just wanted to be like a source for people out there struggling, and we have a lot of fun with it. And so far, it's been successful reaching people that need help. So we're going to keep going.
When am I going to get an invite?
Yeah, we need people. So you can talk about mental toughness.
Well, growing up homeless as a kid and starting work like I did and doing all the interesting things that I've been able to do in my life is cool. I
didn't know that. So next time you're out here, we'll be on. I need some people.
Okay.
I did not know that.
If people want to reach you at budget, how do they do that?
Best way to look, you can look us up online, Budget Maintenance, a quick Google search. But my number, I'll give it to you because I always want to be the point of contact. Jon Jones Jr., 610-718-6448. And
what services? What are the services you guys focus on?
Polished concrete, epoxy, dentifier, joint sealant. We also have an envelope and waterproofing division. We do below grade and above grade waterproofing, air barrier, vapor barrier. Then we also have two other divisions: emergency services division, and a building services division, and a construction services division. So I tell people we're basically like a GC. We do everything a GC does, but we're not a GC. So again, we found our niche, and we serve pretty much the East Coast.
Well, but down like Georgia and Florida.
What's that?
You don't. I've never seen you guys down in Georgia or Florida.
Oh yeah, we've been down there.
What states do you guys like to work in?
I would say really Maine to Virginia.
Maine to Virginia.
Yeah.
East Coast states that come close to touching Pennsylvania.
Yes. We have enough work up here. We don't have to travel too much. New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania keeps us very busy.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you being on. Thank you very much. And
thank you for having me.
Looking forward to talking to you again soon. Have a great day, and everybody, thanks for listening.
Thank you.
That's it for this episode. If you like this episode of Foundations, be sure to head over to our website, expertconcretetraining.com, for training videos and content tailored to your needs, interests, and job role. You can find topic and/or document links from today's discussion in the episode notes on our website. We appreciate your feedback, questions, and support. For specific job-related technical questions, please go to the Experts on Demand tab at expertconcretetraining.com. To suggest a topic for discussion on the podcast, please email info@expertconcretetraining.com. On behalf of David and myself, thank you for listening, and we look forward to hearing from you. The hosts and guests presented within this podcast have experience working with concrete, allowing them to provide insight concerning various construction conditions that might differ for the listener. The content and materials, as well as the products referenced within this podcast, are presented for general information only and are not presented as professional advice. Reference to specific products or service providers does not constitute an endorsement nor illustrate that a particular result can be achieved. Listeners should take care to follow all product manufacturers' warnings and instructions and understand all applicable safety codes. The opinions, views, and statements made within this podcast are those of the hosts and guests only. If you have any questions, concerns, or issues on your project and need additional support, please reach out to your manufacturer or consult with a firm like ours for specific and direct assistance with your particular needs and concrete.